Greetings, lovely people, and welcome to Fast Track Reviews, where today we're going to be looking at Superman. So, here we go. This is James Gunn's DC Universe, and honestly, I am amazed at how good this ended up being, especially, compared to some of the superhero fatigue that we've been feeling from, Marvel, and also the more recent, or not most recent, but, the previous years of DC. It's really refreshing to have yet another good thing come out from James Gunn, because so far he's batting 100 right now, and, yeah. With that being said, we're going to get through all the plots, so this is a great movie. I'm going to get that right out of the way. And, yeah, spoilers ahead for Superman 2025. So, starting off, we get a little bit of backstory to the universe as it currently stands. We've had about 300 years of metahumans being around, which is about accurate to how the comics typically treat it. And it's been 3 years since Superman, started to be a hero. So, he came around about 3 years ago, and in that time, he has yet to lose a fight until the start of this film, where he is in a bad way. He has been absolutely beaten to a pulp, and has managed to fly all the way to Antarctica in order to get back to the Fortress of Solitude, but he is too weak to actually get into the fortress and, get healed and stuff like that. So, what he does, he whistles and calls for Krypto the Superdog. And yeah, I was very excited to know, initially that Krypto was going to be in this film. I don't necessarily love everything they do with him, but yeah, Krypto being in here, it's a very fun thing. It's something that will be in the general zeitgeist because of the DC superhero Pets movie that came out, 6 years ago or something like that. And just general stuff like that. Krypto has very much been in the zeitgeist for a very long time, but it is still a bit of a weird cut for live action, and I really did enjoy his, inclusion in the film here. But yeah, Krypto is a very, very violent dog. He's just lovely. He flies, he doesn't really do too much else other than that. He can fly, and he's really strong. That's really it. But yeah, the Fortress of Solitude raises out of the ice, and we are greeted by some Superman robots who take Kal-El, Superman, Clark Kent, whatever you want to call him, and throw him onto a healing table or bed or something like that, where he is healed by the light of our yellow sun, which is another classic comic trope, and something we haven't really seen too much of in the grand scheme when it comes to how, the various forms of live-action Superman have treated it. We do see elements of that, especially the Snyderverse version of Superman did use the sun at times, but it's never been so outwardly stated of no, the yellow sun is important, it's what gives him his powers, it's what makes him special, and it is very fun. It's a very fun way of doing these sorts of things, and yeah, in general, the whole Kryptonian backstory thing is really, really fun. We do get introduced to the parents, the Kryptonian parents, that is, of Superman, and they have an incomplete message, a damaged message, which, at the very least, from, this point in the film, seems to be pretty positive, talking about hope and saving people, looking after people, protecting the innocent, that kind of thing. And it is a very positive message that Superman Clark Kent has actually, kept to heart, and that's what makes him actually do the good that he does. And I think that's a really good, sort of starting point for Superman. He is inspired by what he believes is his life's mission, essentially, as one of the last Kryptonians. We'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, from that, we find out that the engineer working for Lex Luthor has found Fortress of Solitude, has, basically chased him all the way to Antarctica, and is now there. And obviously, the Fortress of Solitude, once Superman leaves, sinks into the ground, goes under the ice again, and cannot be entered by the engineer. But this gives Luthor enough information to know how to find it, which we will get to in a moment. So, the person or entity or creature, the bad guy that actually managed to defeat Superman, is actually a response to a war, essentially, that Superman stopped between Bravia and Jarapur. and it's all being orchestrated by both Luthor as well as the Baravian president Vasil Gurkos, and the villain that beat up Superman is the Hammer of Baravia, and he is seemingly perfect in terms of he can counter every single move, and it is revealed that Luthor Corp, Lex Luthor, are controlling the battle. They are giving instructions on what the Hammer of Baravia can do to defeat Superman, to make the most effective moves possible, and it's very interesting how it's all visualized, and this happens throughout the film, but the idea of there being, hundreds potentially, thousands maybe, different moves all set in place to be able to perfectly and, precisely counter Superman no matter what is going on. I think that's fascinating. It's very Lex Luthor. He is supposed to be the smartest man on Earth, and it makes sense that he would think of every single possibility and have a contingency for it. And that very much is how this film goes in general from Lex's perspective. As long as he has control of the situation, as long as he can see it, as long as he can command it, he has all the power in every situation. It is kind of incredible in a way. But moving on from that, we do find out that the Hammer of Bravia, he flies to a Luthor Corp camp in Bravia, and he is revealed to actually be Ultraman in a armored suit. Ultraman is, of course, a classic villain, Superman villain from the comics, and yeah, very interesting. We'll get into the plot twist, though it isn't really a twist if you know the comics, in a moment, but revealed to be Ultraman and working for Lex Luthor, which, once again, just adds to the pile of things that Luthor himself has involved in this entire situation. We actually find out that he's using pocket universes, both for travel, and we later find out it's also as a interdimensional prison, and there are a lot of issues explained in the film of, why that shouldn't be a thing. Pocket universes can create rifts in reality, can break apart reality, destroy universes in some cases, at the very least destroy the Earth if one was to get unleashed, and that does kind of happen later on. But yeah, just a very interesting little thing that Luthor has been able to create a pocket universe, which is something that is so difficult and so unlikely to actually work that whenever people discuss it, it's essentially this, if it had been wrong in the slightest, would have destroyed reality. And that is actually, once again, just an incredible representation of how smart Lex Luthor actually is, that he can just do that. He can just create a pocket universe. He can create, interdimensional space, and it go fine for the most part. Obviously, things go wrong in the film relating to it, but for the most part, he can just do that. And so we are introduced to Clark Kent, obviously, the human side of Superman, and he is a bumbling buffoon, and I love him. He's great. And in general, I think the energy that he brings is very strong. He's not a great journalist, interestingly enough, but at the same time, people do seem to like him in the office at the Daily Planet, and I think, honestly, that's a pretty good way of doing it. We have Jimmy Olsen, of course. Lois Lane is also there, along with all the regular cast you normally see from the Daily Planet. I'm not going to get into too much detail of all of them, because they are, for the most part, just background characters and civilians. But yeah, Jimmy Olsen's great in this, Lois Lane is also great in this, and Lois Lane and Clark are seeing each other. They, until the very end, don't really get as far as, actually dating sort of thing, but they are seeing each other, they're hanging out together, they're dating to some degree, but not necessarily explicitly, if that makes sense. And with one of their dates going on, Lois and Clark decide that Lois should interview Superman. So they try to do an interview, which ends with them arguing and Clark just kind of leaving, just kind of getting angry and deciding he wants to remove himself from the situation, which, I mean, fair enough. And to be fair, Lois is asking very difficult questions for someone that knows who Clark is. If this was, someone that didn't know who Superman was, who Clark Kent was, this would probably be a lot easier for both of them. But the fact that it's Lois, who already knows Clark so well, knows that he's Superman, knows Superman is Clark Kent, and vice versa, and all that kind of thing, it really does make it for a difficult situation to be dealing with. And it is interesting that they explore this sort of conflict of interests in many different aspects. And I generally think that's a really good characterization of both Lois and Clark. something that we haven't necessarily seen too much in the live-action films. Obviously, you can go back to the original Superman films, and there is a decent relationship there between Clark and Lois, but I think for the most part, it really works well here in a way that I don't think we've seen before in the films. In the shows, fair enough, we've seen these sorts of relationships work really well. Obviously, Lois and Clark is a very popular series, but yeah, very interesting dynamic there, to say the least. While that's happening, though, Luthor, Ultraman, and the Engineer invade the Fortress of Solitude, somehow getting access, we'll find out a little bit more of that later, and manage to fix the Kryptonian message after destroying the Superman robots and subduing Krypto, and actually capturing Krypto, in fact. And yeah, they managed to find the last half of the Kryptonian message from Kal-El's parents, which discusses how, the Kryptonians should rule over Earth and, actually, mix with, like, a harem and stuff. It's very oddly phrased, and it feels really out of character from, the Jor-El that we typically know, but it's very much as a thing of, it proves, quote-unquote, that Superman is actually here to conquer Earth and not actually to save people and, this, that, and the other. And we'll get into it, but Luthor does use that against Superman. Once again, while that's happening, Superman is fighting a giant kaiju and is joined by the Justice Gang, which in this film is Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, and Hawkgirl, which it's not the most interesting or, large roster. I was actually expecting there to be more different heroes in this film than there were. That's really, with one exception that we will get into, that is really the extent of all the heroes that are in here, is, those three representing the Justice League, or just Gang, or whatever you want to call them. And it is interesting, because we know for a fact that other heroes exist in this world. We even see Peacemaker, which, once again, remember, Suicide Squad is canon, the Suicide Squad is technically not canon, blah-de-blah-de-blah, I'm not getting into that, but yeah, we do actually get a cameo from Peacemaker, which, that series was great. I think I only did the first episode as a Fast Track review, or a Fast Track Thoughts. I probably should rewatch that series. I did finish it, I just never did videos on it. But yeah, I should probably rewatch that and do a review now that there's more context to that world, because, yeah, there's a bit of a ramble, but Peacemaker is a very good show, and I'm very much excited for what, we see next from that. But with that being said, yeah, we are in a situation where there's only really a handful of heroes that are frequently, around, and it is odd to think that potentially other heroes from the previous universe are still around. As I say, like, the fact that technically Suicide Squad is a direct sequel to The Suicide Squad, but the Suicide Squad has different heroes relating to it, like different versions of Batman and the Flash and whatever else. It is kind of interesting enough itself, and it does kind of confuse things slightly, but I'm not going to get too much into that. That might be a video for another day. But yeah, moving on from that, Luthor broadcasts the full Kryptonian message. So not only does he actually show the nice part about how, spreading hope and protecting people and stuff like that, but also the part about conquering Earth and having a harem of women and that kind of stuff. And it goes badly for Superman. He is essentially labeled as a criminal, an alien criminal, someone who doesn't even have rights, and he is captured by the US government and put under the put under the imprisonment, I suppose, of Luthor Corp's military arm, I suppose. And from that, we then see, as I said before, the Pocket Universe prison full of a bunch of different people. It's said that it is political enemies from across the world, various people that need to be locked away because of their certain powers, as well as, people that have just pissed off Lex Luthor, which, I guess that's fair, but yeah, it's a very interesting place here, and we do meet Metamorpho, who is supposed to be keeping Superman, down, essentially. Metamorpho is a character, or Element Man, as he's also referred to in this film, is a character who can synthesize and become any sort of known material. That is literally anything. It can be flesh, it can be stone, it can be, anything. Minerals, elements of any kind, he can just create them, and he has very good control over it. And the reason why he is helping Luthor, to some extent at least, is because his son has been captured as well, his son Joey, and yeah, not a huge fan of the weird green baby, but is what it is. I didn't hate any of the scenes with Joey, but it just it felt like such a non sequitur at parts, and we spent a lot of time with Superman just trying to protect this random baby. Essentially, I know it's Metamorpho's kid, but still, it just feels a little bit weird. But yeah, Metamorpho recreates Kryptonite and weakens Superman. Superman is tortured by watching, random civilians get killed in front of him for, no reason really, while, Luthor tries to get Clark to admit to various things. He even threatens to actually kill Clark Kent, obviously not knowing that Clark Kent and Superman are the same. And yeah, it is a very sad train of events. Metamorpho is actually crying a lot during these scenes because he is just sitting there and watching as Luthor is doing these horrible things. But yeah, with the promise that Superman would be able to save Joey, save Metamorpho's son, Metamorpho decides to actually help, and in order to heal Superman, creates or recreates or simulates a sun. He recreates the chemical elemental forces required to create a sun, a star, and that is enough to at least heal Superman to some level of power, enough that he can go save Joey, fight off a bunch of Lex's goons, and eventually, with the help of Mr. Terrific and Lois Lane, who have been, stood in the portal gateway of this pocket universe, trying to assist Superman and find Superman and help in any other way, is able to get Superman, Metamorpho, Joey, and Krypto, who, as I said before, was captured by Luthor, out of the pocket dimension, and to safety and, free. At this point, we have Clark go back to his human home and basically just heal for a day or so, while, things just continue to escalate back in Metropolis. And, yeah, from this point, there's not too much in terms of plot detail. Obviously, we continue to have Luthor trying to destroy Superman. It's revealed that Luthor was actually working with the Bravian government, as I said before, in order to take over a large part of Jerimpor and potentially even create some sort of tech empire there, tech, utopia there sort of thing, which would, see him as a messiah of sorts or some sort of, tech god of some sort. But, yeah, we don't see that come to fruition, obviously, but it is revealed that Ultraman, spoilers alert, that's a terrible way of saying that, spoiler alert, is a Superman clone. Now, if you are a fan of the comics, you will have already known that. I had a feeling that it was going to be the case. I couldn't remember properly. It's not a character, Ultraman, that I've really seen too much in comics, and he's not really spoke about too much. But yeah, I had something in the back of my head telling me he was a Superman clone. That is the case. Ultraman is a Superman clone, also played by Corin Sweat, and yeah, very interesting to have what is technically a more powerful version of Superman, just without any of the brain. Literally just an idiot version of a slightly more powerful Superman is a crazy thing. And yeah, in general, having Ultraman in the first Superman movie in this new franchise, very interesting choice. I quite like it, and generally it is a very fun to watch. As much as it is a cliche to have similarly powered characters, almost like carbon copies of each other fighting as the end battle, there's a lot of other stuff going on. Luthor has actually caused a split in reality using his technology relating to the pocket universes in order to hold Superman into Metropolis and also cause mass casualty, mass, terror and stuff like that. And all while this is going on, we actually have the Bravian military going into Jerimpor, only for the Justice Gang to turn up. We have Guy Gardner, Hulk Girl, and Rex Mason, Element Man, Metamorpho all turn up, because obviously Mr. Terrific and Superman are dealing with Lex's stuff, while all the stuff from Gurkos is being dealt with by the rest of the Justice Gang. And yeah, straight up, Hawk Girl just murders Gurkos. She just picks him up, flies him high, and then just drops him. And that is what happens. She just murders him outright. He basically laughs at her going, you're just like Superman, you won't kill me. And she just goes, bet? Not literally, but that is essentially what she does. And just drops him and just kills the guy. It's actually kind of crazy that it happens like that, but not to be unexpected from, the DC universe. It is kind of that kind of world. But yeah, truly incredible turn of events there. And yeah, eventually we see the defeat of Lex, we see the closing of the rift, of the break in reality, and everything kind of returns to normal with Lex in prison now, Superman able to, just kind of relax again, and the rest of the Justice Gang being able to continue their merry way as well with new member Metamorpho. So, yeah, with that being said, we have a final character reveal, which is the return, quote unquote, of Kara Zor-El. Of course, Supergirl, Clark Kent's cousin, and fellow Kryptonian, which is why I said one of the last Kryptonians, because that means there are two, three if you want to include the clone of the clone that is Ultraman. But yeah, she has actually been partying near a red sun, which is the kind of sun that allows them to actually, get drunk. And it turns out that Krypto is actually her dog, which is interesting enough in itself. I think it makes a lot of sense to not have Krypto required for every Superman outing, have him be, something that belongs to someone else, a tertiary character, so to speak, though obviously we're going to be getting a Supergirl movie at some point in the near future. And yeah, I don't mind that they introduced so many characters in this. As I was actually expecting there to be a lot more cameos than there ended up being, which I'm not complaining about, but yeah, the end one of Supergirl appearing, very, very fun. And that just leaves us with the post-credit scene, which is very simple. It's just Superman and Krypto sat on the moon, looking at Earth, and that's it. That is the movie. And legitimately, this was great. Like I said it at the start, but this was such a good movie, and I couldn't actually believe how much I was enjoying it. Especially the first third, I'd say, is a little bit all over the place tonally. At points, it feels a little bit off, in my opinion. Like, it's not perfect. But after that, it just continues to get better and better and better. And despite it having a lot of things I tend to complain about with superhero movies, like, as I said before, like the main conflict being a fight between the superhero and a literal, in this case, literal clone of that same superhero in terms of power set and stuff, it's still, it's such a good, well-written, well-designed. I will not go as far as to say well shot. Unfortunately, there are some really weird choices in terms of how they do extreme close-ups at times and weird angles and stuff. It's artistic choices. I'm not gonna harp on it too much, but it is kind of weird at times. There's some really odd just choices with the cinematography, which I find a little bit weird. But yeah, in general, excellent movie with a fantastic cast. I think everyone kind of suits their role. There's definitely some characters that I look at and go, that's not really that. Jimmy Olsen's actor, he's great. He is absolutely amazing in the role. But he doesn't really look how I expect Jimmy Olsen to look. And it's kind of unfortunate in that way. There's a few instances like that where it's just, this character isn't really what I think that character should be like. Even, Guy Gardner is excellent in this film. But there's something about him that's just off. And he's very comic accurate, don't get me wrong. But there's something that's just not quite right about him. And I can't really place it. But there's a few characters like that where I'm just it's not what I envision. And that's fine. It's a different version. It's, not supposed to be exactly a carbon copy of the comics or a carbon copy of this, that, the other. I am perfectly fine with things being slightly off. It doesn't ruin the film at all for me. I really, really enjoyed this film. But, yeah, these are just some nitpicks I wanted to throw out there, just because it's not perfect, and I don't want to say it's perfect, but it's pretty fantastic, and it's one of the best superhero movies I have seen in years. Probably, honestly, it's probably the best superhero movie since either Guardians 3 or, more realistically, it's probably the best one since Suicide Squad, and that's been a good few years now. So, yeah, legitimately, such a good film, especially for a superhero film. Superhero fatigue is definitely a thing, but this was great, and I really, really did love it. But with all that being said, all of that praise and those little nitpicks there, I give Superman 2025 4.5 stars, 9 out of 10. I love this film. Corin Sweat is an excellent Superman. I can't wait to see more of him. The entire cast here is excellent, and just general, I'm really looking forward to seeing what James Gunn has to offer for the rest of the DC universe. Very excited to see what he does with Batman. Very excited to to see more of the Green Lantern Corps, because we know that's coming as well. Supergirl, obviously, Lobo, which is going to be really fun. But yeah, so much to look forward to, and I'm just very happy with how this turned out. I was mixed, very much so, and especially, like, I have heard a few people speak poorly of this film, but I loved it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm actually... Typically, I record these videos maybe like an hour or two after. I have actually... This is about 10 hours later. I have slept since, and I'm still feeling this positive about it, which shows it is a really good film. This isn't just hype from just watching it, like you may hear sometimes in my Marvel reviews, because I typically review them immediately. No, this is... Like, I thought about this. I've had time to sleep on it, literally, and... No, this film's great. I really loved it. But with that being said, that's going to be it from me. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to like it, subscribe, and turn on the bell, seeing them and upload. If it's come below your thoughts and feelings on Superman 2025, which I will say, I kind of liked the name Superman Legacy. I did. I don't hate that they changed it, but I did quite like it, and it means that there isn't two films called Superman. I'm going to kind of do the Avengers Assemble thing of I'm just going to continue to call Superman Legacy when I'm just talking about it in general. But anyway, that tangent aside, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
It's been a long week. I feel like I could use a vacation.